हेलो एवरीबॉडी। आज हम थर्ड चैप्टर के लास्ट टॉपिक को डिस्कस करेंगे, दैट इज़ डिस्क्राइब द इम्पोर्टेंस एंड क्लिनिकल इंटरप्रिटेशन ऑफ मल परीक्षा, जिह्वा परीक्षा, शब्द परीक्षा, स्पर्श परीक्षा, दृक् परीक्षा एंड आकृति परीक्षा. So the first thing that we will be discussing in our last topic is mal pariksha. Right. The first thing that we will be discussing is mal pariksha. When we do pariksha, it is very important that we actually examine the waste product of the individual. What is the state of the waste products of the individual? And one important waste product is purish. Right. So basically what we do in mal pariksha is that we examine the purish of the individual, and we try to see what kind of dosha predominance is seen in his or her mal. So it is given that if the mal is dry, hard, blackish in color, then the mal is vitiated by vat. So when the mal is vitiated by vat, what will be the state of purish? It will be dry, drid, hard, shushk, blackish means Krishna Varna. Right. This will be the state of purish in the individual. Now if the dosha which is vitiating the mal is predominant, or it is of pitta in nature, then we will see that there is a yellowish discoloration. Right. Pita Varna will be seen. Right. If it is of whitish discoloration, then it is vitiated by kapha. Right. When it is shwet in color, then it is vitiated by kapha. We also need to understand about the sam and niram lakshanas of mal in order to examine it in a much broader way. We will be learning about sam and niram lakshanas in further classes, so stay tuned for that. For now on, this much information is sufficient. The next thing that we examine is jihva. Right. So if the jihva of the individual is sheet, khar and sfutit in nature, then it shows vat predominance. Okay. If it is rakt and shyam in color, then it shows pitta predominance. And if it is shubhr and atipachil, then it shows kapha predominance. Now what shubhr means? Shubhr is basically whitish in color, then it shows kapha predominance. The third thing that we examine is shabd. Now what we see in shabd is that we basically understand or examine the sounds produced by the various organs of the body. Some of the organs are like heart, lungs, etc. produces sound, like, right. So we just don't actually examine that how the individual is speaking. We try to understand each of the body, different organs of the individual, that how general sound is heard. For example, while we are percussing him, we understand that what kind of sound we are hearing. When we are basically examining his cardiovascular system, then also we try to understand what kind of sound we are hearing. So it is not only is concentrated to how he speaks or how he talks. It is a much broader concept, right? We try to understand about each and every organ in his body, what kind of sound they are producing as well. So make sure you keep that in mind. So if the sound produced by them is guru in swar, heavy, then it shows kapha predominance. If it is sputavakta, then it shows pitta predominance. If it is none of the above mentioned things, then it shows vata predominance, right? If it is neither guru, neither sputavakta, then it shows that it is vata in predominance. Right. The next thing is sparsha pareeksha. Right. So in Sparsh Pareeksha, we basically examine the skin of the patient, how the skin is in touch, right? We try to examine it by touching it, and we try to understand how it is on touch, right? Either it is sheath, it is ushna, it is khar, and whatever character we try to understand it by touching, right? So it also shows certain things, such as if it is ushna, then again it shows that pitta is in dominant state. If it is shitalam, then it shows a vata predominance. If it is adra, that is slightly wet, then it will show kapha predominance, right? So next thing is drik Pareeksha. Now what exactly is drik Pareeksha? Drik basically refers to eyes or vision, right? Eyes are one of the most important part of the human body, right? So we must examine it because it is very important to examine the eyes of the patient. It provides some useful information about the doshic condition, right? So we must examine it. So if the eyes of the individual is dhumra, arun, neel, ruksh, chanchal, antah pravishta, raudra, then all these things will give this thing that vata is in dominant state, right? Dhumra means what? Dhumra means smoky, right? Arun is a color, we all know. Neel is also color. Rukshita, we know that his eyes are very dry. Chanchal means that it is not stable. You know, we see people who try to talk and they just you can't hold an eye contact with them. They keep on moving their eye from one object to other, right? They can't stable their eyes. So this is what chanchala means, right? Antah pravishta means sunken. Antah pravishta means what? Sunken, right? Deeply seated. We see some people like they are heavily emaciated, so their eyes usually sunken. So this is what it means. The next is raudra. Raudra means terrifying, right? You are basically terrified by looking at them. So all these characteristics will give what? It will give that vata is in dominant state. The next thing is if it is arun, haritra, rakt, malin, tikshna, prabha, deepadveshi, dahayukt, then it will give what? It will give what? It will give that pitta in a dominant state. Okay. So let's just look into certain meanings. For example, you may not understand what Deepa Dveshi means. Deepa Dveshi means, sorry, I will write it here. Deepa Dveshi. Deepa Dveshi means terrified of light. Right. Deepa Dveshi means terrified of light. Prabha means what? Prabha means lustrous. Lustre is there. If you see in someone's eyes, there is lustre present. This is what it means by that, right? The next thing is if it is shwet, धवल, प्लूत, स्निग्ध, स्थिर, ज्योतिहीन, कंडुयुक्त, then it will show that it is in that kapha is in dominant state, right? So make sure you understand all these characteristics. So these things we see when we try to examine the examination of the vision or eyes, right? The sixth point, when we do Ashtavidh Pareeksha, that we have already studied about Nadi Pareeksha and Mutra Pareeksha. Then we studied about Drik Pareeksha, Sparsha Pareeksha, Shabda Pareeksha, Jivva Pareeksha and Mal Pareeksha. The last thing that we study in this whole topic is Akriti Pareeksha, right? So what exactly is Akriti? So certain people say that Akriti is the external feature of the body. You know, sometimes the disease process may depend upon the constitution or the type of individual's body, right? In this section, Acharyas have discussed that Akriti is meant by the Deha Prakriti of the individual. Whatever is the Deha Prakriti of the individual, some people understand it as Akriti of the individual, right? So this topic is actually a topic of great discussion. There is no actual valid point to explain in this. People consider Akriti by the Deha Prakriti of the individual, which is also meant as external features of the body, right? This is what they mean by Akriti Pareeksha. So what the general things that we try to understand is what kind of dosha is in dominant state while examining the external features of the body, right? So we must write Vata Pitta Kapha, and then we will try to understand which doshic predominance will be seen in what kind of characteristics, right? If we see that individual is very prone to diseases, if he dislikes cold, if his skin is dry, right? If his gati is chanchal, right? If his drishti is chanchal, if his mitrata is chanchal, that he cannot have a long friendship with anybody. He is like changing friends from in every month he has a new friend. Then this shows that the dosha predominance in his body is vata in nature, right? If the individual is very hungry, very thirsty all the times, fair in complexion, right? Tamra varna, right? And he has very alpakesh, right? Less hairs on his scalp. Then that will show pitta dominance, right? If we see that there is an individual who is saumya, well built, his joints are very strong, he is very sthul, very balwan, tolerant over things, can tolerate thirst, can tolerate hunger, then it shows what? It shows kapha dominance in the body. So this is how we try to understand and examine the Akriti of the individual. Whatever I have spoken about things in Akriti, you already may have studied it in Prakriti Pareeksha. When we do Prakriti Pareeksha, we try to understand about the Akriti or the Deha Prakriti of the individual. All those points that we study there is applicable over here as well, right? Whatever points that we study in Vata characteristics, all those things we can write here in Vata. All the things that we study in Pitta Prakriti individual, the characteristic of the Pitta Prakriti individual, we can write it here in the Pitta. Exactly same as well for Kapha. Whatever the characteristic that we study while examining the Prakriti of the individual, for Kapha, we can write it here. So I will leave it up to you to write whatever characteristics what you want to write in Akriti Pareeksha. So I think that is enough for this topic. So by this we have ended our third chapter of Rognidan. For the fourth chapter, stay tuned for on this channel. We will be uploading the fourth chapter very soon. Thank you.